Could you just tell us about the military engines family of Pratt Whitney?
Okay, sure. We are fighter engines are kind of part of our legacy. So if you look at right now, we power F-15s and F-16s with our F-100 engine. And we also are the only company that produces what we call fifth generation fighter engines. So that would be the F-119 that powers the F-22 and the F-135 that powers the Joint Strike Fighter F-35. But we also use our commercial engines to power aircraft. So the C-17 is powered by a derivative of the PW-2000, our F-117 engines. And the new KC-46 tanker that the Air Force just recently selected is powered by a commercial PW-4000. So those are our main product families, in addition to our support of the engines.
And could you please tell us something about the R&D programs?
Yeah.
Research programs, connection with military engines. And where do you think the military engines are progressing in terms of increased thrust? What would be the key objectives of military engines 10 years from now?
I believe historically, the goal of R&D programs on military engines has been to increase the thrust to weight, how much thrust you produce to reduce the weight. More and more we're seeing that our military customer is interested in reduced fuel burn. So I think you see a lot of the programs both on the fighter engines, and we're also working on turboshaft programs that can provide a significant decrease in fuel consumption, up to 25% reduction in fuel consumption. So I would say that that's probably the greatest focus right now on our R&D programs.
What about costs? Are we going to see a cost reduction or cost increase?
Yeah, absolutely. I would highlight our efforts on the F-135 program for the Joint Strike Fighter, where we are absolutely focused on reduced cost. We have to make our systems more affordable, not only from a production standpoint, but more affordable from how we sustain the engines. Because if you look at our engines, you buy them once, but you overhaul them 3 or 4 times. So how do we reduce the cost of how we sustain the engine? How do we keep it on wing so you don't have to overhaul it at all? It's a tremendous focus for us.
Who are Pratt & Whitney's main competitors, and how do you stand against them in terms of orders and deliveries?
Well, our main competitor in the United States is General Electric. I won't comment on them relative to us, but I would say that if you look at the Air Force's highest priority programs, it's the F-35 and it's the tanker, and they're both powered by Pratt & Whitney. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
What? Delivered the last F-119 engine of December last year. So now we focus on sustainment of the F-119 engine. We do that at the bases, but the depot is in Oklahoma City. And we do that in a public-private partnership with Tinker Air Force Base, where the depot for the F-119 is. We've just recently completed overhaul of the first full engine that came in with over 2,500 hours on it, and completed that overhaul. Very successful. And we look at the material, the hot section material and parts, the engine looks great. So this is very important to us because it is the foundation of our F-135 engine for the Joint Strike Fighter. So this is kind of the model we ran with the F-100 back in the 70s. We introduced the F-100 engine and the twin engine F-15, and then matured that product and then transitioned it to the single engine F-16. And we're doing that same thing today with our F-119 engine from the F-22, the twin engine F-22, maturing that capability, and it becomes the foundation for our F-135 engine. We take the core of the F-119 with some upgraded hot section technologies, but more than that, we learn about materials. Just the engine architecture of the F-135 benefits from the basis of all our knowledge on the F-119 program. So, the F-35 program is kind of at an interesting place. We're in all 3 phases of the life cycle of a program. So we are still in development. We are producing F-35 and F-135 engines. And now we are in sustainment as well. If you look at the flight test program, it continues to be very successful. To date, we have over 3,000 flights, more than 5,000 flight hours. I think all of you know that earlier in the year we had a couple of issues that one grounded the Stovall B variant for about 20 days. and we had the entire fleet grounded for about 6 days. Those two issues that drove those groundings are well understood, and they are behind us. They're solved, and we are returning to the kind of mission readiness we have historically enjoyed during the program, which is around on the order of 98.5% to 99%. So for us, a key milestone here more recently has been the fact that we have a new contract, additional funding on our SDD contract of $648 million. That was a modification of our contract to continue to support the flight test program through 2016. That was part of the technical baseline review that was conducted by the Joint Program Office. For us, that means additional assets to support additional aircraft that were brought to the program, more flight test hours, and more funding to support our war on cost activities. You know, right now we're probably executing some of the most difficult testing in the flight test program that we've seen. I don't know if any of you saw the films of the departure tests that were conducted more recently. To get ready for that, we actually ran the F-135 engines 50 times for a minute without oil, because in those very difficult conditions where there are negative G's, there's the potential that the bearing compartments could be starved of oil. You might not be able to pump oil to the bearing compartments. So we actually ran that test where we demonstrated a minute of operation without oil for 50 times. And the engine did great and gave us great confidence that we could conduct those tests. So that is the flight test program. That's part of the flight test program that I'm talking about. You see the number of flights that we have here. So we're having great success with the flight test program as well. I think by any measure, you know, we are hitting the flight test numbers of hours that we need to hit. We're hitting the number of flight test points that we need to hit as well. The tempo of the flight test program has accelerated, and I think by comments that we heard at the recent JSF CEO conference by Secretary Kendall and General Bogdan, it sort of indicates the kind of success we're having. And as I mentioned earlier, we're in all three phases of the program, including sustainment. So that kicks off with another heavy maintenance center, the F-135 Heavy Maintenance Center, again at Oklahoma City, at Tinker Air Force Base. So we have begun operations there. We've inducted the first engine. It's a training engine that we're checking out the tech order data, and we'll have full capability for the F-135 depot at Tinker Air Force Base by the end of the year. And now we're working with the JPO and our international partners to determine what the footprint should be for overhaul and repair capability across the world. Our vision is to have regional centers in the U.S., Tinker and Jacksonville, where the Navy does their overhauls and repairs, and then have a regional capability in Europe and Asia. And we have conducted studies both for the countries that are part of the JSF program for their individual sovereign desires, and for the JPO in general to look at what is the optimum footprint for that depot overhaul capability. And that is going to inform a lot of decisions that will be made over the coming months and years. The first international country to declare their desire and to sign an agreement with the JPO to have a depot is Norway. So AIM Norway has announced their intent to be a depot for the F-135 program. From a production engine standpoint, we've delivered all of the Lot 1 through 4 engines. So you see 78 engines there. We are now delivering Lot 5, LRIP 5 engines. We've just recently signed our contract for LRIP 5. That was a contract of just over $1 billion. From a price perspective, we were able to provide the JPO with a 6% reduction in price. So I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. We are working on our LRIP 6 proposal. We have a very aggressive goal that we share with the JPO to complete our negotiations on LRIP 6, submit our proposal for LRIP 7 and 8, and complete those negotiations by the end of the year. So we really want to get on a much better tempo with the JPO in terms of our contracting for our production contracts. One of the things we've been able to demonstrate is our ability to ramp the program. So in 2010, we delivered 12 engines. In 2011, we delivered 27. Last year we delivered 28. I know that says 44, but there were some spare engines that we delivered in addition to those installs. So we've demonstrated our ability to ramp the program. Regrettably, we're going to be flat in terms of production levels until about the 2016 time frame, as you see there. Well, actually, yeah, I think 2016 is now a little higher than that. But you know, so that's a bit of a challenge for us because volume brings the ability to reduce cost, to help to reduce cost. But we know when we've demonstrated that we can ramp the program up by our performance over the last few years. Of course, we look forward to the day when we see production quantities of like 200 engines in the 2020 time frame. In terms of that war on cost activity, great progress since the start of that. We kicked this program off in 2009. At that time, you know, we set this objective, and the ultimate objective is to produce an engine that costs the same amount as the F-119 engine, even though the engine produces 20% more thrust and weighs 1,500 more pounds. And you see we're making great progress coming right down that curve, 40% cost reduction since we delivered the first production representative flight test engine. Since we started the LRIP contracts at 26% reduction in cost, we still have some momentum, some good momentum. In the last 2 years alone, we've taken about $3 million in cost out of the engine. We are seeing a little headwind here as F-119 comes out of production. Our production volume for military engines is down. We'll be down about 50% when you compare last year to where we'll end up in the 2015 time frame. But we continue to work on this to come down that curve, right on that curve, and continue to make progress in cost and price reduction for the JPO. It's important for us and it's important for the program. And again, that additional funding that we just got in that SDD contract bond will be very, very helpful toward us doing that, as we also continue to invest Pratt Whitney funds, which to date total about $60 million that we've invested in our war on cost. You know, this chart highlights the, you know, it says model of international cooperation. There are a lot of moving parts in the JSF program, a lot of partners and participants, but we see a lot of positive momentum. And I think one of the things that just happened recently was the official declaration of the IOC dates for all three services, for all three variants. So the Marine Corps has set their IOC date as 2015. The Air Force actually accelerated their IOC date to 2016, and the Navy has declared their IOC initial operational capability